Welcome to the Yo-11 podcast. Yo-11 podcast, mostly Vegas, no BS casino experience, and more. Michael Trager is casino and travel loyalty expert who also helps people turn their travel dreams into reality. We would also like to mention one of our affiliates and supporters, Your Best Credit Cards. Use the link below to subscribe to credit card bonus offer notifications and never miss a bonus offer again. When you sign up, it will track the cards you are interested in and alert you when the bonus goes up. Speaking of bonuses, you also support the Yo-11 podcast when you use it. And now, your host, Michael Trager. How's it going, Michael?
It is going great. And we're on episodes with 8s and 9s that we're getting up to, since today is 108. I hope it really is 108. I didn't fuck that up. But
yeah, it's anyway, episode 108.
Yes, and we all know 8s and 9s are very, very lucky. So that's a good thing. So how are you doing? We're doing a lot of things going on. Lots of ZorkFest planning. Also, we've been working on a lot of things for the Zork.travel website. The master Movestro has been doing that. And of course, we would love for you to take a little peek at our new ZorkFest website at ZorkFest.com, which will bring you to a new landing page that Movestro has done a wonderful job on, which gives a little bit more detail about ZorkFest as well as the add-ons. We keep tweaking it. It'll probably be completely done with even more information within the next few days. And then we will have the schedule up. I'm hoping to have the schedule all complete by the beginning of September. Just some reminders, the dinner is going to be sold out soon. And I thought that add-on, I didn't know that would be that popular, but I'll bring that up again. But we're doing this incredible Sinatra dinner at Sinatra. How convenient, with transportation after the cocktail reception at ZorkFest. And maybe I'll discuss a little bit more of that, but it's pretty good. Anything else? Any other Vegas-y stuff on your mind, Mr. Movestro? I know you've been dropping a bunch of articles lately, burgers and things like that.
Yeah, I've been writing up some articles as usual at travelzork.com. Did some aviation history on Eastern Airlines. Because there are aviation geeks out there. It is a travel site, so I don't only focus on Vegas. I'm trying to branch out from just Vegas. But yeah, Eastern Airlines, we did a TWA, I think, last week or something like that. And I found an interesting little airline shuttle that popped up in my research. I had no idea existed. It's fun. It's interesting. I'm going to do that one for next week. But yeah, we just did an article about where to get burgers downtown as a follow-up to last week's article about burgers on the Strip. And tomorrow, I believe, it's a very special Frank Sinatra article involving his favorite things to drink. So got that coming up.
And that's going to be something that's going to be incorporated into the Sinatra dinner, which is really cool. Did you get into, when you did the Eastern article, I haven't read it yet, did you get it? They used to have, so their club, if I remember correctly, their lounge, their VIP lounge at Eastern had the best name. It was called the Ionosphere Club.
That was not mentioned. It was more about the rise and fall, like how it started off, how it hit its peak. And then everything, after that, but I didn't find anything ironically about the club. So that's might be something I have to.
Well, the clubs were really,
it's a cool name.
They were really, really, truly for VIPs back then. I mean, they weren't like clubs today where you get credit cards and access to lounges, or where they're creating the lounge as a source of money for you to sign up for credit cards to get access, or to pay to get access for the lounges, or access via status. It was a different kind of thing, but all the airlines did have really different names. Like TWA was the Ambassadors Club.
Yeah.
Eastern was the Ionosphere Club. Delta was the Crown Rooms, I think, which are now the Sky Clubs. So there were a lot of American was always, I think, the Admirals Club. So it's sort of cool. I think actually it's a really neat topic. And on a future episode, I have to talk about my amazing greatness yesterday of dealing with some flight issues leaving from New York. I tweeted out a little bit about it, but it was some really good stuff with some really good takeaway lessons. I have to put that. Maybe I'll do that episode. Probably not this week, but I'll do it next week. But it's got some really really good takeaways, and just to tease it a little bit because I should tease things more often, but where did I do it? I had a note about it. But yes, the main takeaway, a couple of main takeaways was AA endorsing over to another airline. We'll talk about what that means. And also never assuming that something is going to happen or not going to happen. And this was with regard to upgrades. So hopefully I will not forget, and we will do that episode next week. So lots of good stuff going on.
All right, sounds like good stuff. There isn't anything really going on as far as Vegas news today that's worth sharing. There's nothing about openings or closings or anything at all.
Are the buffets going to close? Is the buffet going to close at Bellagio?
Gosh, I hope not. We'll see. But
that was like the false rumor. Did you know that was the false Vegas rumor this week?
No, who started that rumor?
One of the people who usually starts rumors. and then blamed somebody else for starting the rumor.
Wow.
But rumors about Vegas take a life of
their own.
Life. I think the actual rumor that was on the Twitter, which is actually the X, was that the Bellagio buffet was going to close and they're turning it into a food hall.
Yeah, no, that.
Okay, you can look. You something fun. You don't spend enough time on X, do you?
Oh God, no. No, I choose to get my Vegas news from veritable sources. That's why I don't do rumors, because we could just make them up. And I mean, who knows? It might be better for ratings. Like, you won't believe that this is going to happen to Bellagio, buffet, and then people are like, oh, it's wrong. But I don't know. But like, verifiable sources, I usually go with press releases, mainstream Las Vegas news channels, things of that extent. Even sometimes the Las Vegas Review Journal. I try to keep things like, legit.
No, I got possible. You. Actually, what we'll do for the next on our next episode, remind me of this when we start the episode, because it's a great topic, but I don't want to get into it right now because it's a great start, because we've already gone off on a million tangents. But the topic is, should we trust influencers, and do influencers' opinions about things really mean that much? Something interesting. Yeah, I don't know that we'll just do that. We'll do that on the start of next episode. This is going to be fun, because this episode is Big Baccarat is dope, as the cool kids say, and Big Baccarat is dope. So that's it. So what are we gonna do? Are we gonna tease now? Because now I've given away the tease. So we're gonna tease, and then we'll be there.
All right, let's get on with the tease.
Okay, well, look here what is on your screen. What is on your screen is a very easy to read and understand card, which talks about the draw at Baccarat. So Baccarat is a rules-based game. And in being a rules-based game, these are the rules. And this tells you what happens in a game of Baccarat. And the first cards to be faced are the player hand. And they tell you what the rules are, if the player 2-card total is, and what the rules. So if the player, they use the term, this is really important to understand in Baccarat, because it's a casino banked game. When you have two hands, you have the player and you have the banker. But the banker is not really banking. Okay, this is a casino banked game. I guess not like Pai-Gow where you can choose to bank. You're not banking. So it's basically choosing two different hands, whether you're going to be the bank hand or the player hand. and that's it. You're choosing which hand you're doing. So when you talk about, when someone refers to the player hand, this could just as well be called hand number one and hand number two, but one is called the player and one is called the banker. The reason why this goes back is because the person dealing the cards is the banker. And years ago, when people used to play chemin de fer, which is a slightly different version than American Baccarat, when you would play chemin de fer, you would be banking. You would be banking the game and dealing the cards. You would be banking. So the maximum bet would be determined by the person banking, and that was sort of a different way to do it. But in Big Baccarat, you actually do get to deal the cards, and the shoe passes around the table. And as long as you keep winning or dealing banker hands that are winning, you get to keep dealing. So the person dealing is called the banker or the banker hand, and the person who is betting on player is called the player, but anybody could bet on player. So if you had 14 people at a big baccarat table, 7 people could go on player and 7 people could go on banker. And actually, even the person dealing the cards does not have to bet banker, but that's a little bit odd. It's sort of the equivalent of, in craps, it would be equivalent of rolling and betting the don't, rolling and betting against yourself. So, or betting on the don't while rolling, which I guess you could do, but that's a whole nother story. So anyway, that's interesting there. But the thing to understand is that the player faces the cards first, or shows the cards first. Basically, it goes a card for a player, card for the banker, card for a player, card for a banker. We're going to actually look at some big baccarat, but today the dealer would just be handling that at the table, and the hands would be given to the banker and given to the player, or given to the person who is facing the banker hand and given to the person who is facing the player hand. In other words, the players would not be dealing. And if the player 2 card total is 5 or less, the player will always draw a 3rd card. And if it is 6 or more, it will always stand. Now, what gets confusing is when player does take a 3rd card, then the rules for the bank on drawing the cards change, and that's what's on the bottom of this card. So that's the only really confusing thing about baccarat. The beautiful thing is that the dealer does everything, and even in the big baccarat game, the dealers or the croupier will tell you what you're supposed to do. Now, of course, the other thing you'll notice on the bottom is a natural, where 8 or 9 are the first 2 cards. And if that happens for player or bank, there are no more cards drawn at all because you have drawn a natural. So that is cool. But let's get on a little bit. And that was a very, very brief overview. But when you start, it's great to absorb these things like in small pieces. And once again, you do not need to know the rules of baccarat to play it. The casino will do it. The dealers will make sure that the correct hands are always drawn for the 3rd card. Of course, it is sometimes good to know it because casinos do make mistakes sometimes, but it is one of the easiest games in the world. Mostly it's about money management. It's lots of fun. There is lots of suspense, especially if you are facing the cards, which is called a squeeze game. You can trash talk your friends and other players. You can drink as much as you want because you can never make a mistake. There is no strategy that you can fuck up because you are following a rule-based game. So you cannot make a mistake. It's pretty truly a 50-50 game. It's a great game of chance. You can sit out hands, you can face the cards, you can track them because that's just fun to do, does not change the outcome, does not really allow you to predict it, but it's fun to predict. And baccarat also tends to sometimes be a streaky or pattern kind of game. That's, once again, it's not totally random because the cards are shuffled, so they're there and you've got your 8 decks of cards and what's going to be what it's going to be, unlike a roll of the dice or roulette wheels, which are independently random. This is it is a card-based game, but it's really as close as you get to a 50-50 game, and it's a lot of fun. And everyone I know who thought it wasn't going to be fun found that it was a lot of fun. So without further ado, Baccarat.
Baccarat.
Cards, please. High money on the player. Players of 7, they stand. That's all. Players win at 7 over 6.
Baccarat is
So
a
what you're
great
seeing
game.
here-
Really, it's very simple. In fact, the only decisions you
Is a
make
big
are how
Baccarat
much
game.
to bet and which hand to bet on. Only 2 hands of 2 cards each are dealt.
Told you it was simple.
The object of the game is to get closer to 9 points than your opponent without going over. That's the shoe. It holds 8 decks.
That's also the amazing thing about Baccarat is you really only have to be able to count to 9. It's very useful, especially if you drink heavily.
Oh, that's perfect for me then.
There are no options, no decisions.
Points. You draw 1.
Once the cards are dealt, the croupier runs the game according to set rules. He'll add your cards and announce the winner. The person
Once
who's
again,
bet
this is
the
a big Baccarat game where the players deal. You rarely ever run into that anymore.
highest amount on player to win plays the player's hand. Anyone sitting at the table can bet on either hand to win simply by placing their checks in the appropriate box on the table. Now go ahead.
Checks or chips.
Aces count 1. Tens and face cards count their face value. If you go over 9 to double figures, only the last figure counts. Here, 10 and 3 is 13. Counting only the last figure, it's 3. 6 and 4 is 10. The last digit is 0, and 0 is your score. Now, deal a hand.
Bank for a player. Cards, please.
Such a beautiful game.
Players of 7, they stand. That's all. No draws. The players win at 7
Remember,
over 6.
6 or more, player 2 cards always stands.
See, if the player's hand adds up to from 0 to 5, a third card is drawn. In this case, the player got a 7. A player's hand of 6 or 7 is not drawn to. Standing and hitting rules for the banker are a little more complicated, but the croupier will announce what to do. Now they're going to deal again. In
I
this
love the
case, you
word
have
croupier.
9.
Some of us say the dealers.
The best hand in Baccarat. It's a natural.
9.
Any combination totaling 8 is also considered a natural. Neither of these
A
hands is ever
natural
hit
9.
or drawn to. You can also bet that the player and the banker will have a tie hand. The bet pays 9 for 1 and is good for 1 hand only.
Huge house edge on the tie bet. But I
You pay
love
a
it.
5% commission when you win a bet on banker's hand. The croupier will keep track of it here. There's no commission on
Now, the
players.
5% commission thing, there are a lot of people who have a misconception with Baccarat that when they pay commission, that they're that by paying commission makes betting on banker bad. What happens is the commission is an equalizer to keep the game at very close to a 1% house edge for both the bank and the player. So if they by taking that 5% commission every time you win on the bank hand, that keeps the house edge for banker and player almost the same. If you were able to find a Baccarat game, a traditional Baccarat game, that did not take a commission on bank, then bank would have a huge advantage. So that commission just sort of equalizes it. So they're both almost the same house edge. So it's not hurting you. It's not costing you more money. Because banker does win slightly more, but by the maths of the way the rules work in the entire game, that 5% keeps them both a little bit over. One of them is 1.3% and one's 1.2%. Keeps them very, very close. So that's what the commission is there for. There is no commission on player hands because you don't need one, because there's no equalizing. You need it with, I call it equalizing, with the banker hands. And there is no commission on the tie bet. When you bet the tie bet, and a tie is basically the same, it could be 0-0, 5-5, 8-8, 6-6. When you bet the tie, that is a bet that's a separate bet. And if you bet it and it comes up as a tie, you win. The other bets for player and banker become a push. So ties actually do not hurt you in Baccarat. If you want to play it in the most conservative fashion, you should never bet on tie, and tie is never going to hurt you. It's just going to be a push. Of course, if you bet on tie and the outcome is player or bank, you will lose the tie hand.
Now, while they're playing some hands, let's go back over the rules.
Players of 7, they stand. That's all.
Player
No
stands.
draws. The players want it
I have a
Remember,
2 and a
stands on
5.
6 or more.
That's 7. The dealer has 10 and a king. Both count as 0 and a 4. That's a total of 4. The player wins. Both hands add up to 8. Both are naturals. No cards are drawn. It's a draw. In certain situations, the banker's hand must draw to what appears to be a winning hand. The chart in the brochure tells you when. Well, that's Baccarat for you. A great game, as I said, and a king's game. It was invented for a king of France,
Okay.
Louis VIII, and all over the world we still pronounce it the way the French do, Baccarat. The T is silent, and it's a lot of fun. And now I'm going to tell you about one of the greatest...
And that is true. We really have to remember to always refer to it as Baccarat. Maybe, Movestro, you can throw up the card again. It's so people can see that again now that you've seen the game, just so you can look at the rules again. Remember, the first thing you need to remember are the player's hand, which you look at, and if the player is 6 or more, it always stands. 5 or less, it draws. And then the bank hand is a little bit different, but if you read this card, you can pretty much learn everything really, really easily. Basically, when a player does not take a third card, the bank rules are the same as the player rules. When the player does take a third card, and the player is going to take a third card if it's 5 or less, then you have to go to this rule chart on the bottom, and that's it. And there are some other tricks to remembering those rules that could be sort of interesting to talk about. And it is Baccarat. The T is silent. Baccarat. It's not Baccarat. It's not Baccarat. Baccarat. It's Baccarat. Baccarat.
Ice
How would you
games
say it?
ever
Movestro
played.
can probably say it well.
All right. That was it. That was cool. Okay.
So what do you think, Movestro?
I think it's
That
pretty
was
interesting.
our little primer on Baccarat.
I think that's it's a very interesting game, no doubt about that. I really like that you only need to count to 9. That really appeals to me for, if I'm on a roll or something, or just getting a lot of drinks. Counting to 9, I can do that. That's not a problem. I mean, I used to play video poker.
You
stone
also
drunk.
realize today we have side bets. We have dragon bonuses. We have tiger bonuses. We have all kinds of additional side bets. This is pure Baccarat. Pure Baccarat has player, bank, tie. There are only 3 things you can bet on. Most people are betting on player and banker. Remember, I told you this game has like a 1% house edge, a very, very low house edge, a little bit over 1%. Tie has like a 14% house edge. So it's a really, really lousy bet. But I like betting on tie because it's sort of fun. But anyway, I thought this was sort of fun, and hopefully it comes out that way. I'd love to hear about your experiences with Baccarat. I'd like to hear if you pay attention to the rules when Baccarat is being played, or you just let the croupier do everything. But it's pretty cool stuff. And that is pretty much so everything. Anything else that you were thinking of, Movestro, as you were watching this amazing Big Baccarat game?
I think I'm going to watch more of Orson Welles explaining things. I just found it to be very soothing.
He's really, really good, isn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a really good, and I haven't played Big Baccarat in a few years. They used to have it at Borgata, Big Baccarat ended at Borgata. I think it was in 2017. I was very tired, but the game just looks like that. The problem with Big Baccarat is it takes so many dealers, and it's just heavily labor intensive, whereas a regular baccarat table just has one dealer. But it's cool because you have two sides of the table, so you usually have about 14 people at the table. But it's a great game. Also, a reminder, though we've already sold it out, but who knows, maybe we can get another table, open more spots, who knows what's going to happen. But we do have a private baccarat table at ZorkFest on Sunday after Coffee Dice. 4 reminders about ZorkFest. We have created an amazing weekend where you're going to have learning opportunities, but we are not going to keep you locked into a classroom the entire time. We have a great cocktail reception on Friday evening. After that, we have a optional dinner, or you can go off and do what you want on Friday. Then we have all of the ZorkFest goodness on Saturday, including our new concept of Craps or Coffee Dice Lab and Blackjack Labs. Haven't exactly figured that out, but it's really hands-on gaming experience. And we're going to talk about all the great comps and travel loyalty and casino loyalty all day. We're going to end Saturday with Podcasters After Dark at night, where we also have some additional drinks that have been sponsored. And then Sunday is mostly a gambling day, where we have Coffee Dice, we have private baccarat table, and we're also going to do more group gambling after that. And of course, people can watch, they can participate, all kinds of stuff. And that's on Sunday, is mostly a gambling day. But we did create a optional add-on miles and points travel loyalty masterclass that will be going on sale soon. For those who don't want to gamble, though actually you could still observe and see Coffee Dice and be involved in Coffee Dice. After that, there will be an additional cost add-on for this masterclass for the people who just want more, and that's going to be for people who want just small group, more miles and points stuff, really want to geek out on that stuff. So it's going to be a wonderful weekend of ZorkFest. So check that out at ZorkFest.com.
Alrighty, sounds good. And that's going to do it for this episode. Luxury travel booking, travelzork.travel. Visit us at travelzork.travel to plan your next amazing vacation. And please join the conversation on social media. You can find us easily. All social platforms are at TravelZork. We'll see you next time.